Hey guys, this is Bonfrey from L World. This is FOE Advance. Today I wanted to talk about a topic that I think has been brewing quite a while on my mind in terms of deleting GBs in a sense for replacing them with something more enticing or something just actually more effective, depending on what that GB offers and so forth. And this has to do with where I'm at in the game on my journey. I'm not exactly recommending this for other people per se. I think everyone needs to run their own city the way they want to. You know, you might like the historic aspect of some of these buildings, and you might like the visual aspects of those. But for me, I've been playing the game so long that I am just kind of evolving, trying to stay interested in optimizing. So my viewpoint isn't so much to encourage you to do the same things I'm doing, but to explain what I'm doing and why. Just because I've been playing this game for like, I don't know, 7 years or something. And I've come and gone from it over the years. And I think right now my engagement has to do with being in a good guild and getting a lot of battles in. And some of the changes that Inno has made just in general have had pluses and minuses. But when you have a perspective of looking at this game over the years, you also realize, well, some of the old thinking that I was around for, and that even now is still recommended by some players, may not be current, may not be contemporary enough for really optimizing the city. So as I look at my city right now, it's a mess. I need to redo it. And before I go to that time and energy to spend at least several hours re-optimizing my city and trying to minimize roads and things like that, I'm looking at what I can delete prior to rearranging the city because obviously I want as much space as I can. I also am quite frustrated that Inno hasn't offered me the 200% diamond bonus, discount. It's been over a year since I've gotten that. So I'm diamond poor. I'm at 3 diamonds right now. So the winter event kind of cleaned me out in terms of a few things I wanted to go after, and that was especially the blissful chalk, so that I could continue to spawn nutcrackers, at least so I can get one mass self aid kit a day. I need 10 of these level 2 to accomplish that. I'm pretty close to it, but you wouldn't know because I've got them all over the place, and my city's just a you know dog shit mess right now. So anyway, let's get to the GBs that are on the chopping block. So currently, I've got some buildings here that make no sense for me to have, and I've kind of held off on deleting them just so that I could do a video and explain the what and the why of each. So let's start with the Tower of Babel. So you may also notice that my citizens are super pissed right now, and I'm going to probably address that in another video because the research I've done based on happiness and unhappiness and the effects that come with that, and then how to mitigate it, is enough content, I think, for another video. So anyway, just going to ignore the unhappiness for now. So Tower Babel, I'm deleting that because I don't need unrefined goods related to my age. I mean, I'm in SAT, I'm in the highest age in my case, and I make all my goods from special buildings or from my army of sleigh builders. So in some cases, I have tiered my sleigh builders to stay in certain eras. If I wanted to say produce AF uh, for some reason, I mean AF is a good example. It's a very constrained era in terms of goods because nobody stays in it very long because it blows. But at the same time, the sleigh builders, for me, I made sense to just bring them all up to Titan because I can trade down because highest era goods are always the most valuable in the game and they're highly marketable. So I'm not building goods buildings. The only thing that I would need that I would be able to use a TOB for, and for that matter, my Galata Tower, which I'm also deleting, is for building actual goods buildings from that era, such as CE, and then producing goods, that way with the goods that you need in a traditional goods building. Well, in a sense, has sort of um, eaten away at, they've eroded the value of traditional goods buildings in a given era because of all these special buildings. And that's really the bigger thing we're looking at in this video is what has happened in the last, year, 2 years, 3 years of the game that affects how the game used to be. It's a completely different game. I mean, it didn't used to be as monetized as it is now. It didn't have ads. Just on and on and on. So anyway, I'm deleting the Tower Babel. Yeah, it gives me some population, but that's another topic. So that's going to be first. The next one is of course the SMB, because I don't really need coin boosts at this point. Again, you want to look at these things depending on where you are at in the game. I mean, at some point the SMB makes sense. If you're going to hang out in lower eras, generally when you collect things, say from your given era buildings, even if they're, say, an abandoned asylum, you're going to get a lot less coins and have less buffs if you're in a lower era, because obviously special buildings buff, as you era up and as you renovate them or one up them. So anyway, SMB takes up a ton of space. Again, it's producing unrefined goods. The only benefit I've really gotten from keeping these buildings is fulfilling quests regarding collect this many goods, collect 300 goods or whatever. Well, I can do it really quick if I pop these buildings, because they'll just go fast. But then again, I have all these slave builders. So anyway, SMB is going away. And next, this one is going to be an interesting point of discussion. So in my guild, which I'm taking a break from this season because the top two guilds in L ended up back to back in 2 GBG seasons for all of December. So I got really overworked on using my my body in terms of like too many mouse clicks, some repetitive strain, things like that, thousands of battles, and I needed a break and I needed to make some videos. So in the discussions though we had in our guild, we have had a lot of topic floating around of deleting the COA, deleting the Himeji, the GT, the Cape Canaveral. Again, this is probably the worst GB in the game, other than maybe a Coliseum, although that may be important again with this happiness issue overall with the polishing that needs to happen with some of these neg happiness buildings that have come out. But anyway, again, another topic. So there's just various buildings of the space carrier. So I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But anyway, if I delete my COA, which I'm planning to do, it takes up 24 squares. Okay, so the thing about it is that it can be replaced by 6 jumping pumpkins. So if I do the math on that, this building is only giving me basic, attack, and with defense, right? You get the two, I'll just call them the two, silver things, the shield and the swords. But if I go here, and I happen to have 15 pumpkins in my inventory right now, and I'm going to have 1,000,000 of them eventually, but I've got an unhappiness issue to deal with, but I'm working that out. So anyway, I can put 6 of these in the same spot as that COA, and again, I have like 9 more, and more are coming down the pike because I have all these shroom thrones that keep popping out from my autumn vineyard. So this is like this endless cycle of these buildings being made. So the COA makes no sense, because if I do the math, 6 of these is in my era 78 of what this is giving me 67 of, and I'm getting all the blue boosts. So adding those on top of, and then the numbers, you can see the numbers are going to get pretty crazy. So if I look right now at my boosts, the defense is really high because of all the jumping pumpkins, and The numbers are high enough here that I feel like I've got a lot of flexibility. Yes, I want them to be as high as possible, of course, if I'm a player with a battle mindset, yeah. But again, I just don't feel like this building makes any sense at this point. And I'm not going to cry over, having this big GB or sorry, this big FP investment in these buildings I'm deleting because they serve their purpose. I mean, again, I think it's how you look at growth in general in your gameplay or maybe in your life. And you're like, hey, I need to hold on to stuff because, sentimental value or I spent the money and I'm frugal and, so it just depends on where you're at. And, I'm not saying this is the right or the wrong. I'm just, showing what I'm doing. So that's going away. The Galata Tower also going away. I mean, I don't get plundered that much. And yeah, it has plunder repel, and I think it's super cool when someone tries to plunder and it just, tells them to, to get lost. But at the same time, again, unrefined goods, and I really don't get plundered. I mean, I don't think I've gotten plundered in a long time. Now, that's easy for me to say because I'm, up top in my neighborhood, and I have a lot of other, friends in the game that are probably going to be in my neighborhoods that really aren't going to want to attack me anyway. So, but if you're a younger player in the game, that is, and newer player, I should say, and you need, to protect yourself from constant plundering, then yeah, I think plundering is not as popular as it used to be. I know that for sure because there's so much other ways to spend your time in this game that have more gainful benefits. I really think plundering is a waste of time. I don't bother with it at all. And it's just, again, not a building I need where I'm at. So that's going to get deleted. Next, let's see. Tower Babel, we addressed that. The SMB. The space carrier. So the space carrier, I don't need either unless I want certain things that come from the the prizes that come from flipping it, right? When I go and negotiate and do those things. So I don't take time to negotiate anymore because I just it takes too long, and I only do it if I really need to. Maybe I'm on GE5, the last one or two encounters. I might have to negotiate, and I know there's some low hanging fruit with when you're early on GE and you want to quickly negotiate. You can get some prizes, but I just don't feel like the rewards are big enough. Yeah, I can get, some FP here and there and some other benefits, but I get so much of that from other buildings and also the battles and it's just kind of the value of this building is eaten away because the main time I needed this was when I was going up through AF and OF because when flip this thing a bunch of times as you are trying to get through those tech trees, it will produce extras of the special good. So you probably know what this does, and I'm not going to belabor it, but I'm going to delete mine to make room. The Inno tower is definitely on my chopping block too because it just produces FP. So it's like a Cape Canaveral. It gives me population, which I definitely don't need because special buildings do that now. And I'm only getting 45 FP off this thing. I mean, and it's huge. So I think the GT is going to be on the next round. So I don't know. I'm gonna think that one through before I delete the city. But I just don't think for the size of it that at a level 75 and it's only producing 45 FP. I can probably do better. I mean, anyone has to look at what they have in the inventory, right? That's what you're weighing. It's like, okay, if I'm just deleting stuff to delete it just to make clear space, I mean, that's one thing that'd be dumb. But if I have something, in the ammo box here to deploy, I need to look at that too. I mean, I've got level 9 pirate hideouts, which I think are fairly inefficient, but there's other options. I've got tons of abandoned asylums and Fiore villages and other things. So I'm pretty sure I can replace that with something more efficient. So then, of course, the other one is the CDM. I'm not going to delete it yet, but it's something I look at. I think 70 is an okay number. plus the 53 FP. So I'm going to leave the CDM alone, I think. But the LOA, so the LOA is also on my maybe delete because while I'm a huge fan of having enough supplies and it gives you a killer supply buff, the other thing it does is gives me again more goods I don't need for lower eras that I can trade down to. So the LOA, I don't know, because I'm at 8.5 billion supplies and 114 billion coins, and I just you can get supply buffs from other buildings. You can also use your boosts. So this was something we were talking about recently too in our guild, which is that if you want to do a really big buff on your supplies, what you may want to consider doing is stacking your supply boost when you collect, like one time, or maybe you do a special thing where you store some buildings and you make a bunch of supplies. And if I were to use all these boosts I have in stock, and then you're boosting on top of boosting, I mean, you could potentially take in tens of millions of supplies just by using these in chunks, right? So I think one guy in our guild stacked like 250 coin boosts one day and just came out with like hundreds of millions of coins or whatever. So, that's something you can do too. So again, I think I'm probably going to chop the LOA at this point. Again, there was a point in time in the game I needed this because when you're aging up with eras that you're moving through, I mean, you need maybe, 5 million supplies or 10 million, whatever it is. And if you don't have them, you don't have them. So very helpful building. But again, this is an OG building that was introduced really at the beginning of the game. Most of these buildings are that I'm talking about. And I think they've just been outpaced. Now, there's a ongoing discussion about, well, will Inno like change will they morph the buildings? Like, will they make an LOA more powerful or better in the future? The basic opinion is no, because they have nerfed some GBs in the past. The most notable being the Virgo silo. It used to have an effectiveness against PvP, but they nerfed it to take that away because they got complaints. But that was in hindsight, I think they realized that wasn't a really good thing to do. And since then, there's been very little, if any, changes to any GBs. So the pattern seems to be, well, we're not really going to change a particular GB. Now we may come out with a tertiary building that would maybe benefit, in like a circular way, maybe with certain buildings. But we haven't seen much of that related to GBs, and I mean, honestly, I'm just not that worried about it. I mean, it just doesn't seem like Inno's play is going to be to start messing with GBs. Now, we do know that they are messing with special buildings. Like, hey, what about the Abandoned Asylum? They haven't touched that in a while, and now they're coming out with these, silver and gold upgrades that you can snap onto some of these existing older buildings. That's cool. That's the reason I don't sell, even though AAs are sort of inefficient and not as cool right now as they used to be for a 25 square building. If they come out with an upgrade for this, cool. And I've kept like 8 of them in my inventory. I'm not selling those. I mean, that's another issue, is that the antiques dealer just doesn't have much compelling stuff to buy. I mean, I've got almost 2,000 gemstones, and I buy stuff constantly but then I sell constantly because I want to get my castle points. If, I usually go for anything that has 5 to 6x castle points against the price. So, yeah, I don't really need a great tree of love, and if it's costing me 6, well, it's only 4x return on my spend for castle points. So I'm not going to buy that, but I buy other stuff all the time, especially anything that's just straight coins. I mean, I'm going to buy that no matter what. But generally, I'm in here selling all the time and also buying quite a bit. So I don't know, but all that to say, there's just very, very seldom opportunities to spin this down. I mean, it's just it's not there. So anyway, I'll digress on that, but I think that there's certainly good evidence to go ahead and get rid of these buildings that I've talked about. So I mean, we're talking about 6 GBs plus 2 more on the chopping block between all the buildings I've talked about. So yeah, it's quite a purge. But then again, I've got pumpkins to put out. I've also got the cider gardens. They keep popping out and multiplying. So, and quick little side nugget about these recent event buildings. So, if you got any pumpkins or cider gardens or these magical globes and related buildings, pay attention because some of these don't need roads, including the Majestic Wonderland Pyramid. So, that is a thing that you want to pay attention to. It's easy to just throw things down and assume they need a road, but many of these don't. Obviously, in this case, I put nutcrackers on the road because they need them. And a lot of times I'll just, instead of going and doing all the research, I'll just say, hey, I'm going to move a building. And I click on it. And if the little road doesn't pop up, I know, okay, I'm good. But like here, the little, it'll get upset if I move it away from a road. I get the little cross out. So pay attention to that because it could really impact. Like over here, I've got a bunch of cider gardens nested in between these pumpkins. I hate the fact that pumpkins need roads, but that is what it is. The donkey enclosures need them, and so forth. So just be on the lookout for that. If you do get tourney grounds from fighting in GBG, also does not need a road. So something to think about. The in general, I think we're just seeing so much of these other kinds of buildings. I mean, this Tower of Whispering Horrors, like where the hell did this building come from? And I ended up with a bunch of them because I was playing the Halloween event, and it just kind of like happened one day, and I was going for something, I don't know, and I ended up with a ton of these, and they're actually pretty cool. So a lot of happiness. I mean, decent attack. This is a pretty badass building for how small it is. I mean, I'm getting a little bit of everything, which is awesome, and that I can move them around pretty well because they fit in pretty easily, but they need roads, which kind of blows. So anyway, and then I'm going to start focusing in on buffing up these GBs, the SAT GBs. I've just been busy with other stuff, and I really need to focus on these. I mean, I'm trying to get my arc to 180, so I've really been kind of pouring into that, and it's at 162, but it just takes a lot of FP to do that, and that's a distraction that takes me away from the Saturn, GBs. But anyway, I'll probably stop it here. I hope this has been helpful. Maybe some food for thought. I don't claim to be the smartest or most experienced guy in the game, but hopefully I'm helping you guys out with some micro strategies as you think about growth, or maybe you've been in the game and you're like, well, maybe I can mix it up a little bit. So anyway, here we are. Thanks for listening. Subscribe, like, comment. Appreciate you guys. Take care.